So, honjitsu Google Developer Day ni oyobi itadaki makoto ni arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much for joining Google Developer Day. This is my second time to come to Japan. Every time I come to Japan, I eat lots of delicious food, making my stomach full, but my wallet empty.
KML wa chiriteki na juhu kukan no tame no motomo takawarate iru fairu
is a file format for expressing space information. It is a very it is a very attractive technology. I hope that you can use for creating various contents. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is hard to understand. I am not able to speak Japanese, so please bear with me. I hope that the Google Developer Day
will
help all of you to understand how important the development community is to us. I just wanted to use Japanese to show how important you are to us.
So thank you for all coming today. I am very excited to be here. And what I am talking about is KML, which is a language that we have developed at Google for describing geographical data. And so as part of this talk, I want to cover three different things about what KML is, what you can do with it, and why it is or should be important for you. And I hope that you enjoy it. KML is most often used with Google Earth. And so when you start up Earth, you will see on the left-hand side a section called Places, you see? And you have a bunch of files in there. And so first off, we'll talk about the name is KML. And so this is the term by which you can search for it to find out more information about it. And that first I will do is I will fly into Shibuya. And so this is the very busy intersection in Shibuya. And I will zoom out and move south. And this is where the Google offices are. So in the Places section is where the KML exists. So I can go to that section, select it, and go to Edit, then Copy. And then I can bring up a text editor, and then I can go to Edit and Paste, and it will show me what the KML file looks like. And inside of this, you can see that it is an XML-based standard, so it shares many of the same things compared to HTML. So, for example, it starts off at the top with the XML header, and then down below it is the namespace declaration to indicate that it is a KML file. And then inside of it, you have tags, starting with, in this case, document, and ending, and that is the close tag. And then inside here, it is the main important information is this describes a place mark. So it is a location on the planet, and it has a latitude and longitude, and it can be used to describe any location you want. And so what I'm going to do is show you that not only can you copy from Earth, but you can also do the reverse thing as well. So that these coordinates are latitude, longitude, and height above ground. So because the Google offices are not on the ground floor, I'm going to change that last value there from a 0 to a 3. And so this stands for 30 meters. And then I can select all of that. I can then copy, and then go inside of Earth, and then press paste. And that it has created a new place mark inside of Earth. And then as I rotate, sorry, I have to edit this as well. Excuse me a moment. Is what I'm going to do is bring up the text editor, and now with the altitude, you see that it's 30 meters. Now we have two place marks. One is on the ground, and then the other one is elevated in the air. And so the only thing I needed to do to create that was to change a single value and then copy it back into the program. And the nice thing about that is that it makes it very easy to edit and work with KML. That often when you have a web page, this is, if you open up and do view page source, actually I'll give you a better example. You can see the same sort of thing that KML has. So you can see close and edit, close and start tags and end tags, and nesting that can display useful information. So that the idea is that it's both easy to write and also to understand it. And it makes it very easy to publish and share, much like HTML. And that we hope this becomes the standard for geographic content, like HTML is the standard for web pages. So this is some of the documentation for KML. And we are in the process at the moment of making the English documentation available in Japanese. And so the pointer for you to find it later is if you go to google.co.jp and then click on the more link, and then come down here and click on code. This has links to the different API documentation. Now, many of these links are currently in English, but we hope to make more of it available in Japanese to make it easier for you to learn and understand it. So back to Google Earth, I want to show you an example for Mount Fuji. Imagine that you are going on a hiking trip to Mount Fuji. So you can type in Mount Fuji in the search box, and it will fly you out here. And then you can add a path for your hiking route. So I am going to be drawing a line like this, and I will make it much thicker so it's easier for you to see, like that, and make it red. And then you can take this path and press play, and it will follow the hiking route. And so this shows you its applications for everyday life, that any important decision, any information about a geographical area, about a place, about a trip, is something that KML can be used to express and share. And in this case, we make sure that we arrive at Mount Fuji so that we are facing Tokyo, so we can see what our place looks, what our home looks like from a long distance away. So again, you can copy this, and I will clear that and paste it into a text editor. And in this case, you have a number of coordinates which correspond to the different points along the path. And by describing lots of points, you can describe a curve, and then not only can you take that, but you can then publish it to a website, you can send it in email, and you can do many of the same things you can do with HTML. So, cancel that. So the other is there's also some very sophisticated things that can be done with KML. So, for example, earlier I was searching online for information about Hotel Nikko, and I found a URL where somebody had published a KML file. So if I open up a new tab and type in this URL, it will download what is called, is actually a KML-like file. This actual extension is called KMZ. So you can think of KMZ as being almost exactly the same thing as KML. There is only a slight difference between the two. And so at the moment, it will open it up inside Google Earth. And that's very good, but there are also other things that you can do. So in this case, if you go to Google Maps and then press paste, it will actually, in this case, not search for a location, but it will try and open the file that, that you put in there. So in this case, you press the button, and here is a map of Oroiba. No, it's Oda Oba. So you can see here is the meridian, and I believe that the next one here is Hotel Nikko. And so that the point of this is that KML is not a file format just for Earth. KML is something that can be used in Google Maps. It can be used in other products. And because it is a published format, anyone who is interested in reading or writing KML files can do the same things as we do. And we are very interested in promoting and supporting that kind of ecosystem for the file format. So in this case, you can see that this has a map of the island, and then inside of Google Earth, I can then go, I've already loaded the file, so I can fly to Oroiba, and you can see exactly the same file. So as I alternate between the two, it's the same file, like that. And so there has been a lot of work for the Google Maps team to support KML, and this means that you can use it on many different platforms, and we hope in the future to extend it to more and more platforms. For example, smaller, lower-powered devices like a cell phone, for example. Inside Google Earth, there are some things that you can do inside of Earth which are not possible inside of Maps. In this case, the obvious thing is that you can rotate and tilt and zoom around, but it's still the same KML file. And so inside of Google Maps, it will do the best job that it can to express the important points of the KML file. And one example of something that's useful in Google Earth is that if I just zoom up here, that you can do a side swipe here. So you can compare the map and then when there is none. So, okay, I'll show that. So, the other thing about this file that is kind of special is that it's called a KMZ file, and that's a Z instead of an L at the end. And with a KML file, it's just a text file, and so it describes, in this case, well, I will again copy it to show you. So copy this and paste it inside a text editor, and this describes the map of the area. So it's one small part of the file, and what it describes is the icon, which is the image, and then the long box, which is basically where it is geographically located. And the other thing that it has here is name and visibility. And this is something that some of the tags are shared between different pieces of data. So for example, most things in KML can be given a name, and you use the visibility to say this should be shown, this should not be shown. And in this case, the name is there, and when you put it inside of Earth, at this point here, you can see that the same name is shown to the user. It's very good. So with the KMZ file, what it does is it allows you to wrap several things together. So this is the KMZ file. So what you can do to understand it is change the extension from .kmz to .zip, which is ZIP, and this is a standard format, and we like to use it because it is very easy for everyone to understand it. And if you open this file, you will find inside of it some KML, and I'm going to copy that out there. There you go. And then open it up in a text editor. And there is more. This is a much bigger file because it has everything and not just the map. But you can see that the map is the very first part of the file, and that this actually points to the image that is images / and then the name of the image. And so what the KMZ file does is it helps to wrap everything together, so that if you go in here is the map, and the KMZ file takes the image, and it takes the KML file and puts it together in one single file, which makes it much easier to share with other people. Because otherwise, if you sent one thing, it's very easy to lose another part of it, at which point it will be broken for someone else. And so beyond that, the other thing to talk about is this is an example of some of the more sophisticated things that can be done with KML. So in this case, I'm going to show a simple place mark, and this is the Google offices in Mountain View in the United States, and this is a simple place mark, but when I move my mouse over it, it will turn color. And that this uses a mechanism called styles, and which often makes the KML files bigger. But in this case, what it does is that it says that when the mouse is over the place mark, to change its color and to change the styling of it. And that way is when you move the mouse over the map, sometimes it's difficult to see, to know exactly what you've selected. And that when you, when you do this kind of styling, it makes it possible to easily tell which one you've selected. So in this case, you know, it's obvious when you mouse over it that that's the one that you want. This is probably most important actually when you are doing search results. So, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so if I go back to Tokyo a moment. I'm going to show a more sophisticated example of KML. This is something called the 3D warehouse, and it is a KML file that it doesn't actually contain any data. What it does is it talks to a server and tells the server that the user is looking at Tokyo and give me the data just for Tokyo. So for example, you might do this is if you had too much data to be contained all within one file, say a file that was gigabytes of data, you can use what is called a network link to fetch just the information that is important for the user. So in this case, it will display information about buildings that people have created with a Google program called SketchUp. And so you load up this link here, and this is a building that somebody has developed. And then when you move the map, you see that it hasn't loaded any data. So what you can then do is refresh, and it will load up more data. See that place mark there was just appeared because I'm now looking at a different area, so it will load the data which is just for that area. So one of the interesting buildings in here, I think, is the model of the Tokyo City Hall. And I'm going to show this zooming in like this. So this is Tokyo City Hall. Is I believe it's the tallest building in Tokyo. And this was developed in a program called Google SketchUp, and then it's exported in a file format called Collada. And Collada was a format that was developed by Sony and then donated to the Kronos group, which made it an open standard. And the important parts of that were that Sony, because of their reputation, was able to develop what was a very good standard, and then it donated it to the Kronos group so that Sony no longer controlled the standard, but this other group did. And so the Kronos group can act for the benefit of everyone, including including the companies, including the developers like you, and it makes it an open standard. And we are interested in, or we are in the process of doing the same thing with KML, and working with the OGC, or Open Geospatial Consortium, to make KML an open standard that you can have more confidence in, that it will be sort of like, will continue to develop and grow and will be widely supported. So that's just an example of that. But I think that it's an important point that we are not interested, we're not interested in controlling the standard. We're interested in making it very popular and very widely used and very useful for people. And we think that the best way to do that is to make it an open standard that, that everyone can use. So I was going to show you another example, actually. This is, if you do a search for Isahaya, this has an interesting result here, actually. Because when you do, I'll close that at the moment, Isahaya, Japan. And if you do that search, it will fly you to an area where there has actually been a lot of development. So this is, I just reorganize that. This layers on the left shows some of the content that is available in Google Earth, and we also use it as an example of the kind of things you can express in KML. So this discusses the Isahaya Bay, and including the land reclamation, and there's a KML file that you can open, and I have already opened it. So this actually shows, actually the bay from 1993, and then this point here shows the bay from 2001. And if I zoom into the center section here and then switch images, you can see all of the land that has been reclaimed. And this is partly to demonstrate KML's value in not just describing geographical data, but describing change over time, describing the environmental impact that that development can make. So that, again, if I take that file and then bring it into the text editor, you can see that there is not very much information there. So it has two ground overlays, both pointing to slightly different images. And then up here, there is something called a radio folder, which means that you don't show both things at once. You either show A or B, but not both of them together. And that makes it easier to swap between them. Now, with the KML, a lot of the same rules apply as it does to HTML. So for example, the tags themselves, in this case folder, are something that you have to keep in English so that so the program understands it. But the other content, for example, the name, you can put in any text that you would like. So it's because it's UTF encoded. What I'm going to do is copy a place mark, and then bring up a website. So, for example, Google, and I'm going to copy some of the text on the top of the page. So you do that copy, and I can just paste it inside the text editor, and there it is in the kanji, and then move over to Earth. I'll delete that one I did earlier, and press paste, and that sorry, I changed the wrong thing. Let me change the name of the place mark rather than the one of the folder. Oops. Okay, copy that bit, change the name of the place mark, and then copy it back into Google Earth. And so you can see on the Places panel that the kanji appears, but also, importantly, is when you zoom down there, you can see that you have very nice quality kanji characters, and that displaying kanji is sometimes difficult for programs to do. So we've tried very hard inside of Google Earth to actually make the program very friendly towards other languages. And so you can both run the program in Japanese, you can display any type of kanji character, and that provided other people have the correct fonts, they can also see the same content. And for those of you who are familiar with text encoding standards, is you save the file in UTF-8, and then it can be shared with anyone. Yeah. So now, so one of the other important points to make is about why KML is important to you and what value it has. Is KML is already a very, very popular standard. So for example, if you go inside of Google, you can do a search to see how many KML files there are. So the way to do this is to type in file type :KML. And this will show you, as 172,000 files of KML. And this is content that other people have created and published independent of us. And it shows just how popular the format is already. And that over time, that will grow in size. So that if you want, it has the same value as making a web page. So if you want people to learn about something of importance to you, for example, where a business is located, or for tourism, or for describing something of, say, environmental conservation, publishing the content as KML means that we can search, means that we can index it by visiting all of the different websites, the same as Google search does. And then we can make it available to other people, to anyone who's interested, so that they can search for it. And so, for example, I'm going to show you one of, if I have a little aside, that one of the challenges for mapping products is getting data throughout the world, because there are a lot of places that we do not have data. And so, in that case, we are very lucky to be able to rely on other people to create data that we can then show. And so, for example, if you type in hotel, Moscow, this is data that we did not create ourselves, but other people published. So, for example, this is somebody who has visited some of the hotels in Moscow, and that they have talked about the file, about the location, or that they put in comments about it, and that sometimes it's in English, sometimes it's in Russian, and you can publish any content that you like. And with the new standard that we're coming out with in very soon, it's this KML spec version 2.2. We're also adding in attribution. So if you were the author of the original file, then you deserve to be recognized by Google and recognized by the user as being the source of the information. And so, for example, the same when you search on google.com, you get the website URL. In the new KML standard, we will then point to you so that people understand where the data came from. And that I'll give you another example of actually, the important part with the KML search is that this is a way that people can more easily find your data. A lot of the time with websites, unless you make it easy for people to find you, it may be that no one actually sees the work that you've done. And that the geographical data is harder to find because it's very different from a website. So it's important about both the content is important, what it is talking about, and then also about where it's located. So we've developed a lot of technology to make data easier to find for people, so that more of your data can be seen. And some of you may already be familiar with the Google Maps API, which is a way that you can create a website that has Google Maps in the website, and you use JavaScript for that. One of the things that we are trying to encourage is for more content to be published in KML, because KML is easier to index and search, so it makes it easier for other people to find your data. So if you have a Google Maps website, you can do some very clever and very powerful things with it, but it sometimes makes it harder. It makes it harder for us to publicize your data to other people. And so that's the kind of trade-off that you have between the two systems. The other examples I wanted to show down here are for the descriptive KML. So that not only KML uses several different standards. It uses zip to wrap files together. It also uses Collada to display 3D buildings, like I showed you with the Tokyo Metro tower. And also it uses HTML as well. So you can actually create a description for a placemark that includes a lot of HTML inside of it. So in this case, it doesn't support all of the things that a browser does. It doesn't support JavaScript, for example, but it has many of the basic things like sizing, styling, and image loading. So when using this, if I copy it again and then bring it over to the web browser, into the text editor, sorry, a program doesn't get confused in the file, which is KML and which part is HTML, that it needs to have a way of dividing between the two. And so the recommended way of doing that is using what is known as a CData tag. And this basically tells Google Earth or Google Maps that it should ignore the contents of the description and just copy it across without looking at it. And so when it comes to display it, it actually displays in something like a miniature browser, and it's then correctly formatted. And it makes it much easier for you to author KML files. Now, let me show you another fun example. So this is a sample for actually one of the more important issues that's facing us at the moment. This is H5N1, which is the avian flu. Excuse me, I will turn this other content off to make it clearer. Turn to global awareness off. And so this is some of the outbreaks of avian flu. And this data was originally collected and published by Nature magazine. And then a guy called Declan Butler took that data and then expressed it in a different form in KML that enables you to show how it changes over time. So this is what is known as the time slider inside Google Earth. And currently it covers the period from November 2003 to February 2004. So you can click on these dots, and so you can see this styling, which makes it easier to see what you selected, like with the red place mark earlier. And you can click on it, and it will tell you information about that outbreak. You know, for example, which country, the date, and also the species. So, for example, here it shows in Japan, in Chugoku and Kyushu, some of the outbreaks. And in this case, unfortunately, although there were some deaths there, this was fortunately only affected birds. And then you can take this slider and then move it, and you can show how the dots appear and disappear over time according to where the outbreak is or where it spreads. So I'm going to show you crossing here, and you can see it. There's an outbreak in Russia as it travels westward. And then if I center around on Europe, you can see one of the major outbreaks around the Mediterranean, and finally it goes all the way out to Spain. And the nice thing about this is that it allows you to express data in a way that is much easier for people to understand. So for example, you could imagine having a very large spreadsheet that has all of the same information, all of the locations, all of the details about the type of problem, but showing it geographically makes it much more apparent about what's happening. In this case, you can show the westward migration, and you can say, well, okay, if it's hit this part in Russia, then we have to be careful to look around that area because it's next going to affect Europe. And the idea is that although this is for a very global issue, the same opportunity for expressing geographical data also applies to things that are very personal to you as well. For example, like I showed with Mount Fuji, going on a hike, or if you wanted to meet up with someone and look at and decide on a location, or even something like you want to buy a house. You know, where are the local schools? How do you get to work? You know, what route to take? And that what we allow, the nice thing about working with Google Earth and Google Maps is that we provide what is a very strong, we call base map, so that if you had a single place mark, it may not mean much information. But if you can zoom into Google Earth, then, for example, I will zoom into Shibuya, you can say, well, if I had an apartment that was, you know, somewhere close by, I know maybe there, well, you look at that and you think that that's probably going to be very noisy. Maybe I like living in a noisy area, or maybe I would like something quieter. And so that's a very small amount of information in the place mark, but when you share that with somebody, you can see the other data that we have in Google Earth, and which will give you context of the area, you know, what's around you, what the area is like. And that the intent of this is to both show the value of KML, and so I would encourage you to look at where KML might be valuable and important for you. And that I hope very much that you will take some time after the talk to learn a little bit more about it, and I hope that you're able to use it in your work. And so thank you very much, and hope to give some time for Q&A. All right, thank you. So we have a microphone at the back, so I'm always concerned about giving a talk that I may be too detailed or I may have missed points, and so I would very much encourage you that if there's something I should have said or should have made it clearer, I would like to do that now. Yeah. Okay. Is it? Should we bring the microphone? Oh, right. Okay.
すいません。KML を作るにあたって
In creating KML,
Sorry.
KML を作る
in
に
creating
あたって
KML,
セキュリティ上
in
特
terms
に
of security,
ここは気をつけた方がいいとかっていう
are
とこ
there
ろがあり
anything
ま
that
した
we
ら教
should
え
pay
ていただきたい
attention
ん
to?
ですが。
So when you talk about, well, okay, there are two parts to security. One is about protecting your own data, and the second part is about protecting the user. So, for example, KML is designed to be safe to send to another person. So it's, you know, for example, you can't send a virus inside of it, and that it has the same things like a browser, that if we do our jobs properly, like designing a browser, then it will be very secure. And so, but sometimes you uncover problems with that. But I mean, for example, today we've never had a security problem from a user with KML. The second part is about securing your own data. So if you want to control your data so that it is shared with some people, but not shared with others, KML supports many of the same security features that HTML has. So, for example, if you have a password-protected website, you can just put a KML file there, and that same password protection will also work inside of Google Earth. So when you open the file, it will say username, password, and you can't view the file until you've entered that information. Yes. Is that good? Okay. So, I have some other hands.
他に手を挙げていらっしゃる方。
Hello.
First of all, thank you for speaking here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have two questions in English for you. One is it possible in a KML file to localize? Can I make a map of Tokyo and put the names in Japanese and in English, or in English?
That's a very good question. So let me show you something of the, this is the English documentation, and so as part of the network link, there is a I think it's HL equal. Okay, I don't know where it is in the documentation, but with a network link, you can say, fetch me a file. And when you send that information, you can ask it to append a language code. And so you can say, for a Japanese user, it will say HL equals I think it's JA or JP, or HL equals FR for French. And so, yes, we do support that. Yes.
Thank you. And my second question is, could you explain a little about how you found the, you said you searched for Hotel Nikko
Yes.
And you got a KMZ file. How did you search for it?
Yes, I can show. So the place that I actually went to is what is known as the Keyhole BBS. Oh, wrong website. There you go. And this is a bulletin board where people can talk about Google Earth, they can talk about KML. So I did this with a search for Hotel Nikko, Tokyo. And I think it was one of these files. I think it was this file here. And so actually it's the second file here. So that when I copied that URL and then pasted in here to show the content in Google Maps, and you just open the file and you can open it in Google Earth as well.
Oh, so you didn't actually search in directly into the Google
so actually what this does is it is actually searching in Google although the search is on the website, we use a technology called Google Sitemaps, which allows you to describe where your data is on the website, and it helps us find more information. And so that in this case, it says, go and use Google to search for this term, but search just within the website. And I just use it sometimes because it usually has content that comes with more descriptions or comments. But you can do the same thing on Google Earth. If you went through google.com, you could do a search for Hotel Nikko Tokyo file type KML, and well, it doesn't actually give you any results. Okay, so it has some KML files here of different hotels, but yeah, we need to make that better.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think the gentleman at the back, and then you, sir, as well.
興味深い発表ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much for interesting presentation.
KML は非常に強力な
KML is such a powerful descriptive language, I believe. And earlier you talked about OGC, and in OGC there are many specifications open to the public, such as GML. And GML is proposed to ISO, and the specification will be published soon, I believe. And the Google, for the standard specification, what is your thought? What is the Google thought about the standard specification?
So it's a very good question. It's a very, very important issue. It's important to us, and I think it's important to you too. So is Google, the first thing is that Google believes very strongly in open standards. So for all of the talks today, we are trying to be as open as we can about our technology, how you can use it, and what the specifications are. So with the OGC, we are working with the OGC at the moment to basically make KML an open standard. And so it will have many of the same, the idea is to move it much closer towards GML in terms of its openness and also how strong it is as a standard. In fact, we owe a debt to GML because some of the structure of KML is inspired by GML. So the next standard, KML 2.2, will be a joint collaboration between OGC and Google. And then for future specs beyond that, we hope that it will be managed as much as possible by OGC. Yes. But we believe very much in supporting OGC and making it an open standard. Does that answer your question?
ありがとうございました。
Okay, thank you very much.
Was it gentleman here?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. I have two questions.
まず一つ目なんですが、具体的にGoogle Maps の機能で My Map という機能があるんですが、
There's a functionality called My Map in Google
その
Maps.
My Map の機能の中から KML へのエクスポートができるかと思います。
I think you can do export to KML from My Maps.
逆に Google Earth で作成した KML を
But can you take KML made in Google Maps, imported into My Map? Is it possible to import a KML into My Maps rather than just export from it?
Yeah, it's a good point. The idea is like what I showed with the text editor in Google Earth, that you can go from Earth to text editor, that you can also go from text editor to Earth. And the same thing applies to My Maps as well. So for example, with the Oraiba, this is actually a KML on a web server. And I was able to load that up into Google Maps. And when Adam speaks later on, is Adam Shuk, about My Maps, he will actually show you how you can take that KML and then add it to My Maps. So the answer is yes. But I haven't set it up correctly to show that, but he will. He will. Thank you. But sorry, was there two questions?
はい。
Yeah.
はい、
Yes.
先ほどの質問と被るんです
It's
が、
related to my
バージ
last
ョン
question. But
3.0 というものは、Google が次にリリースするのではなく、OGC
So
と共同という
the
形
next version of
した
KML
んですが、
version 3 is going to be done jointly with
その
OGC rather
時
than
期というのは
just
先ほど
released
バー
by
ジョン
Google,
2.0
right?
が出たとしたら、来年以降
So when will version 3 be made available? Will it be next year or will it come out this year?
Okay.
I'd like to know the timing for, KML version 3.
Yeah. The standard will be called KML 2.2. It will not be called KML 3. So the timing for KML 2.2 will definitely be this year, and is probably within the next few months. And so this is the first time that we've worked with the OGC, and they've been very helpful, and we enjoy working with them. But making it an open standard takes more time and more effort. But we believe it's worth spending that time to make sure it's done properly. Yes. So we would like to get it to you as soon as we can. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, okay. So thanks very much for everyone coming. If you wanted to ask questions, I will be around here later, and I'll probably be wearing a Google Earth T-shirt, so I am very obvious. And thank you very much all for coming. Thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu.